Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of the Thriving Moms of Autistics podcast and your host, Dr. Christina Wills. Moms are often in a high alert state, because anything goes with our kid. And even though we're really good at anticipating, you never really know what to fully expect. Now, weather events occur all over the world. I know that I have a lot of listeners in various countries around the world. And so you know this, depending on where you're located, that's the type of weather event you have. You can't get away from that. And this week, we had a lot of crazy weather here across the United States. And it got me thinking about some things. And so I wanted to really share and dive into this because it's important for every single one of us. So we can prepare for some natural disasters, but like hurricanes, for example. But things like tornadoes and flooding, that can happen in an instant. So in this episode, we explore how moms can develop a plan of action ahead of time and use their developed superpowers for shifting with the unexpected to support themselves, their child, and their family, and reduce anxiety and manage chaos in the process. And whenever I talk about superpowers, remember those are your innate strengths. So find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app and share the podcast with other moms to help them grow in their autism journey too. You could also do that by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, which really furthers that reach to other moms. I appreciate you. So it's so important for moms of autistics to prepare for the unexpected. I feel like we spend our life preparing, right? We're planners. So it can feel really daunting to try to have it all together all the time. And we juggle a lot raising our autistic children. For our children, routine is critical. Super, super important. When it goes sideways, and it will, chaos can quickly ensue, right? There is this whirlwind of emotions and anxiety, vulnerability, and for moms, the deep end need to protect. So, what can moms of autistics do? It kickstart that change. Well, I think it's really important to first acknowledge always that we're human beings. Okay. We often forget that because we're moving, right? Mistakes will be made because we are not superhuman. Yes, we are human beings, but we're not superhuman because that doesn't even exist. And well, in the movies, and we do our best. I want you to remember, repeat after me. I am doing my best. Okay. And this week, I realized that I missed the mark or I dropped the ball. Yes, it happens. And it is it is easy to do when you have an overloaded plate as it is. But with that said, I'm showing myself some grace and I'm learning from it. And my growth mindset has allowed me to acknowledge and move forward while cutting those ties and squashing negative thought loop and jumping into positive action. Okay, ooh, it feels good too. When I was a young teenager, we had this unusual weather event in January. And I was home alone at the time, and the tornado sirens malfunctioned. It was unseasonably warm that day. The sky had turned a shade of yellow. Very strange, very unusual. And this eerie feeling was in the air. You never forget that sound, that roaring sound and how your house shakes. And we lived on the outskirts of town, so we ended up being spared that day. But within a couple of miles down the road, the town and my friends weren't. It was catastrophic, not anything I had ever experienced. And that spring, it happened again, but on a lower level. I was at work this time, and my mom had called, and she instructed me and my coworker to get into the hallway down by the bathrooms. My coworker could see the tornado in the distance coming towards us. And she said, "Oh, you've got to see this." And she took me down the hallway. Thought it was really great and exciting. And of course, I'm kicking and screaming. Okay. Needless to say, my past trauma and anxiety kicks in during these inevitable storms. Okay. I know this about myself. And our kids are super sponges. They don't miss a beat. So I have to work even harder to keep my anxiety in check. And this week we had to take shelter and there was a tornado. Thankfully it wasn't anything like what we had experienced in the past. And I asked myself, why do I not have a plan for my family for this? Well, we have a lot to contend with, right, over the last several years. And it's called autism. So this is something that we will have in place moving forward. So, how do moms of autistics prepare for the unexpected events that can lead or result in chaos and anxiety? I'm going to give you 7 things to consider as you prepare and for your family for those unexpected events or even the expected ones like hurricanes. So, the first thing is to make a list of the events that you need to prepare for happen in your location. Off the top of my head, we need to prepare for fire, tornadoes, flooding. And I plan to brainstorm with my husband and, of course, my best friend, AI, to figure out the additional possibilities that maybe I'm not thinking of because I am just one woman. And the second is to be mindful of your past experiences and your perceptions of weather events. That is something that will always be with you on some level. But, you can continually find ways to support yourself through it. And also, it's important to develop that family plan for the different emergency events. And that needs to be a plan that fits your family. Okay. Our family needs are all different. They always say once you met an autistic, you met an autistic. Well, consider what works for your family. The fourth thing is to determine the best way to share the plan with your child. Again, we're all so different, right? My son was nonverbal for several years. And I think that might have been part of the reason, because it did come to mind. I thought, well, I'm not sure what he's going to understand. And he was so much younger. Maybe that was part of the reason why I hadn't had something in place whenever I got about it years ago. I came to realize that he understands and he is always listening and taking in the information. Even though he could not communicate it, right? Like we communicate. He can't communicate that with us. So, as they say, there's no better time than, all right, number 5, involve your child in the process and use your resources. So there's 2 of those in one. You know, you know what's best for your child. And for my son, social stories are really helpful. Like, that's our go-to. Um, he even likes to be involved in writing them and illustrating them. He gets really excited about them, and then he memorizes them, of course, after he reads it, and it's there forever because he's got that kind of memory. Many autistics do. So, this also, um I actually have my ABA help us out with those social stories, and they're a great resource for us. And they are really good at covering all the bases and thinking of things that maybe I didn't think about. And we use our resources. The sixth is to practice. Have drills from time to time. Schedule those drills. Involve your child in the process and practicing preparation. That can help you gain clarity where there might be a disconnect. They do have a communication disorder, and you may not be saying it in a way that they understand it or vice versa. So you could work out the kink before. You don't want to work out those kinks in an emergency, right? That's when it's the last is make sure that you have your toolbox ready and full. Okay. So if you have past trauma or if you just deal with anxiety in general, and many moms do, consider the tools. And you need to remain as calm as possible. Okay. Consider all the things that you need to help your child stay calm and you to stay calm. I do breathing techniques and different things for me. Sometimes we do that with him. We also have a whole other slew of things that we do to help him calm. So ask yourself, do I need a go bag with sensory items in case we need to escape from a fire or flooding or whatever it is? Or the go bag just to use while you are taking cover. Do you have one in your basement if you have a basement? Include those sensory items in your child's favorite calming technique. Now, I hope this has helped you and given you something to really think about. And that was the goal. So head on over to the Growth Hub for Moms Raising Autistic Children Facebook group. If you haven't joined already, join. We would love to have you. And we would be so blessed to have those shared experiences with you. And it's a way for moms to solve problems together that are going through it too. And we can help develop a plan together and bounce ideas off of one another because you don't have to do it alone. Okay. We've got you. So I've included that in the show note. So let's meet up again next week for another episode. Have a blessed week.